What do women really want when it comes to size? When it comes to what actually feels good, safe, and satisfying in bed? Not just what people joke about. This topic gets thrown around everywhere. On social media, in group chats, over drinks, in half-serious, half-awkward dinner conversations. Some men brag about being huge, some women roll their eyes, and somewhere in the middle, people whisper about ideal measurements, as if there's a sacred number that guarantees perfect intimacy. But pause with me for a second. Is any of that actually true? Or have most men been comparing themselves to a story that was never real in the first place? Here on Seniors Vitality Code, we spend a lot of time helping men over 50 and 60 untangle fear from fact. And this worry about size is one of the deepest, most persistent fears there is. Men carry it for years, sometimes for decades, often in silence. Today you're going to get something different. Not locker room talk, not movie fantasies, but a calm, honest look at what women actually tend to prefer and what the science quietly shows when nobody is pretending. And I'll tell you this right up front, the real findings are almost always more reassuring than the stories you've been told. Before we really dive in, do one quick thing for yourself and for other men. Tap the like button so this type of honest content gets pushed to more people. And in the comments, write where you're watching from, your city, your country. It's powerful to see a community of men at different ages, different backgrounds, all trying to grow and let go of shame that never belonged to them in the first place. All right, let's step into the heart of it. Here's the myth that has haunted men for generations. Bigger is always better. That single short sentence has fed billion-dollar industries, crushed self-esteem, and even put pressure on marriages and long-term relationships. But when you strip away the hype, the science tells a very different story. When researchers studied women's private preferences, they didn't just ask them in a way that invites polite, performative answers. Instead, they watched what women chose when there was no audience, no social pressure, no one to impress. The patterns pointed strongly in one direction. Most women consistently preferred average. Yes, average, not extreme, not cartoonish, not something that looks like it belongs in a movie set, just normal. That's not a comforting opinion someone made up to make men feel better. That's what multiple clever studies revealed when they looked at real behavior, real purchases, and real choices. And it gets even more interesting because those studies didn't stop at asking questions. They analyzed what women actually buy when no one is watching, what sizes sell the most, what shapes are repeatedly chosen, and what women return to over time. So, let's walk through this the same way we would if you were sitting in a quiet office, maybe in your 60s or 70s, carrying this question in your chest, am I enough? Instead of guessing, we look at what the data says, and what women's bodies are actually built for. Research has examined millions of dollars in product sales, top-selling items, and anonymous patterns in women's choices. That kind of data cuts through bravado and public performance. It shows what real people prefer when there's no crowd to impress. And the reality is far kinder and calmer than the myth. To make this simple, we'll break it into 5 powerful truths, each one correcting a common mistake men make when they think about size. Mistake 1: believing women want extremes. Many men are convinced that women secretly dream of 10, 11, or 12 inches. They hear a joke, see a clip online, or watch an adult scene and assume that's the standard. But when researchers examined best-selling sex toys across several major distributors, the results were the opposite of those fantasy numbers. The most popular lengths clustered around 4 to 6 inches. In other words, squarely in the average range for most men. When they looked at girth, they found the same thing. A comfortable, normal circumference, generally under about 4.5 inches. Not huge, not tiny, just ordinary. Biologically, that makes sense. A woman's vaginal canal isn't built for extremes, as the normal relaxed depth is only a few inches. And while it can lengthen with arousal, there is a limit. Going far beyond what her body can comfortably accommodate doesn't create deeper pleasure. It creates pain, burning, or a feeling of being bruised. That's not intimacy, that's strain. Emotionally, comfort is what builds trust. When a woman's body feels safe, she can relax, breathe, and let herself be fully present. When she braces against pain or pressure, her guard goes up, her body closes, and the emotional connection suffers. Practically, this means that if you fall anywhere inside the normal range, which the vast majority of men do, you are not automatically disqualified from giving her what she needs. In fact, you are closer to what most women naturally lean toward when no one is watching. Mistake 2. Thinking length matters more than fit. Another study looked at realistic dildos on major online platforms and in large US retailers. The average length hovered around 6.5 inches, slightly above the middle, but not by much, which is already close to where most men land when fully erect. The more interesting part wasn't the length at all. It was the fit, the circumference, and how comfortable it was likely to feel. Researchers observed that comfort and girth within a normal range mattered more than stretching for the maximum length possible. Biologically, too much girth doesn't equal more pleasure. It can actually cause micro-tears, soreness, and a sense of being overwhelmed. A woman's arousal depends heavily on relaxation of the pelvic floor muscles, not on being forced to accommodate as much volume as possible. If muscles are clenching in self-protection, arousal shuts down. Emotionally, when the fit feels right, she doesn't have to think about her body as a problem. She's not worried about whether it will hurt or whether she'll have to stop. Her attention can shift fully to the connection, to your touch, to your presence. That's where satisfaction opens up. Practically, this translates into a huge mindset shift for you. Instead of worrying about measuring up to some imaginary length, you get far more benefit by focusing on rhythm, on staying responsive to her breathing and movements, and on communicating. That matters 10 times more than the number on a ruler. Mistake 3. Comparing yourself to media fantasies. The adult industry operates on exaggeration. It selects for extremes because extremes shock, sell, and grab attention. Enormous sizes, strange angles, endless stamina, none of which represent ordinary, real-world intimacy between real partners. Yet many men silently compare themselves to those fantasy images and walk away feeling defective, small, or broken, even though those videos are designed to distort reality. Biologically, the reality is simple. Most men fall between 5 and 6 inches in length when fully erect, and around 4.5 to 5 inches in girth. Those are established averages from large studies, not guesses. And most women's bodies are built to work with that range, not the extremes you see on screen. Emotionally, believing that you are too small or not enough chips away at your confidence. And over time, that insecurity can do more damage to your sex life than any physical measurement. Because confidence, calmness, and presence are what women consistently report enjoying most, long before they start talking about inches. Practically, it means you need to stop grading yourself against an industry created specifically to manipulate insecurity and sell fantasy. Real women in real relationships want to feel connected, seen, and cherished. They are not lying there thinking about how you compare to an actor on a screen. Mistake 4. Ignoring women's real private feedback. Here's a revealing twist. When women take public surveys, they may occasionally give answers they think they're supposed to give, exaggerating size preferences because they expect that's what sounds exciting or impressive. But when researchers stepped away from surveys and looked at behavior instead, the pattern changed. When women made private, personal choices for themselves, they overwhelmingly chose toys and products that were average in length, comfortable in girth, and realistic in price and shape. Biologically, this reinforces what we already see. Their bodies respond best to what feels safe, sustainable, and comfortably stimulating, not to extremes that create soreness or fear of being hurt. Emotionally, Think about what it means when a woman chooses something just for her, in private, without anyone watching. She is choosing what feels right for her body, not what impresses anyone else. And time again, those choices land near the average. Practically, if you fall into the typical range, you're already very close to what most women quietly select for themselves, which means you are not behind, you are not disqualified, you are aligned with what many women naturally gravitate toward. Mistake 5. Forgetting what actually creates satisfaction. The biggest mistake of all is building your entire sense of worth and sexual value on size alone, assuming that a larger measurement automatically equals more satisfaction. For her and for you, that's not how the body or the heart works. Biologically, a woman's pleasure is influenced far more by clitoral stimulation, emotional connection, feeling safe, and having time to build arousal than by a single measurement. Multiple studies and thousands of conversations with couples point to the same truth. Technique, patience, and understanding her body matter far more than size, once you're within a normal range. Emotionally, what makes a woman feel fulfilled isn't a number. It's whether she feels desired, respected, listened to, whether you notice her reactions, whether you care about her experience. That is what opens her up to deeper pleasure and deeper trust. Practically, that means your energy is much better spent learning how to be present, how to slow down, how to read her body and ask what she likes, than obsessing over whether you are above or below some imaginary ideal. When you shift your focus to connection, you give her what most women are actually craving and almost no man is taught to provide. So, what can you do with all of this information? Instead of carrying the question, "Am I enough?" like a weight on your shoulders, here are 3 grounded steps. First, stop comparing. Understand that the large majority of men are in the average range, and that average is exactly what most women privately choose and feel best with. Your goal is not to beat a number. Your goal is to show up as a whole man. Second, focus on confidence, not bravado, but a quiet comfort in your own skin, a willingness to be seen as you are. Women pick up on that energy instantly. A man who is at ease with himself is far more attractive than a man who is bigger but radiates insecurity. Third, build connection, learn to pay attention to her breathing, her small shifts, her sounds. Ask her what feels good. Be willing to take your time. Prioritize her comfort and trust. When you do those things, the question, "Am I enough?" begins to fade on its own, because her response makes the answer obvious. This topic can feel heavy, especially if you've spent years or decades secretly believing you were lacking. Maybe you've avoided intimacy, pushed partners away, or stayed half in, half out emotionally because you were afraid of being judged in the bedroom. You need to hear this clearly. You are not broken. You are not less. You are not defined by a measurement on a tape. Your worth as a man doesn't vanish with age, and it doesn't depend on matching a fantasy image. In fact, many men over 50 and 60 have a massive advantage. They've lived, they've learned, they know how to slow down, listen, and be more present. Those are qualities women truly value. So the next time your mind drifts back to numbers, remember what the science and the behavior data show. Most women prefer what you already are, not an extreme, not a performance, but a real person in an average, healthy range who cares about her experience. This journey is not about chasing some extreme ideal. It's about showing up with presence, heart, and confidence. If this message brought you even a little relief or reassurance, give the video a like so it can reach other men who need to hear it. Share it with a friend or brother who might be carrying the same silent fear. Intimacy at its core is not about statistics. It's about presence, connection, and the courage to be yourself. Those are skills and qualities any man at any age can improve and embody. Thank you for spending this time here with Senior's Vitality Code. Remember, with the right information and a shift in perspective, You can move from anxiety and comparison to comfort and quiet confidence, not by changing your body, but by changing what you believe about it.